Rejected by her children, she decided to climb into the crater. But what she found down there... Martha held the wooden cane firmly as she walked toward the old fissure that cut through the center of Eureka Springs, a small town in the interior of Arkansas. At 72, she carried in her cloth bag only a few documents, a faded photo, and the last words she heard from her 3 children echoing in her mind like a sentence. 2 hours earlier, sitting at the dining table she had bought with her savings as a seamstress, Martha heard Gregory, her oldest son, speak the words that broke her heart. The 3 siblings had gathered without telling her, and now they were there, serious as ever, talking about her life as if she weren't present. "Mom, you can't live alone anymore. There are too many forgetful moments, too many falls, too many scares," Gregory said, avoiding looking directly at her. Deborah, the middle child, added in a voice that tried to sound caring but that Martha recognized as fake. "It's for your own good, Mum. We found a very good assisted living facility in Little Rock. You'll have medical care, activities." The youngest, Kevin, nervously fiddled with his car keys. "It's temporary, Mum, until we get ourselves better organized." Martha knew her children too well to believe that last lie. She knew Kevin was building a swimming pool at his new house, that Deborah had just bought an imported car, and that Gregory was planning a trip to Europe. There was no room for an elderly mother in those golden plans. "You've already decided everything, haven't you?" she asked, feeling her hands tremble, not from old age, but from a rage she hadn't felt in decades. "Mom, don't be like that. The assisted living facility is very good. It has a garden, other people your age, other people whose children don't want them anymore," Martha finished, getting up from the table. "I understand." Gregory sighed as if she were a difficult child. "You're being dramatic. It's the best decision for everyone." Martha looked at each of her children, trying to find traces of the kids she had raised alone after her husband abandoned them 40 years ago. She found nothing but well-dressed strangers who seemed eager to get rid of a problem. "All right," she said, surprising them with the calm in her voice, "but give me an hour to say goodbye to the house." The 3 exchanged glances, relieved by the lack of resistance. "Of course, Mom. We'll be back in a little while to pick up your things," Deborah said, already heading to the door. When she was alone, Martha didn't cry. She grabbed her bag, put in the documents, the wedding photo, and a small amount of cash she kept hidden in the lining of a drawer. It wasn't much, but she had saved penny by penny over the years, dreaming of taking a trip to see the ocean. Now that money would serve another purpose. She left the house for the last time without looking back. Her steps naturally led her to the center of town, where the old crater had always sparked her curiosity. They said it was caused by a rock that fell from the sky many years ago, even before she was born. The dark, deep fissure had always been surrounded by a small wooden fence and warning signs that no one read anymore. Martha stopped at the edge of the crater, peering into the depths that disappeared into darkness. The limestone rock at the edges was marked by time and rain, creating small, natural steps that went down the steep wall. She mentally calculated what she was about to do. If her children no longer wanted to worry about her, then she would solve the problem once and for all. But as she began to descend the first few feet, carefully leaning on her cane and the unevenness of the rock, she heard something that made her stop. It was a weak voice, almost a whisper, coming from somewhere down below. "Help! Is anyone up there?" Martha looked down, trying to see something beyond the shadows. "Who's there?" she shouted. My name is Arthur. I fell in here 2 days ago. I think I broke my leg." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to hit the like button and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Martha felt something stir inside her, an instinct she thought she had lost. Without hesitating, she began to descend more carefully, using her cane to test each foothold before putting her weight on it. The descent was dangerous, but she had spent her whole life taking care of others, and she wasn't about to stop now. "Hang on, I'm coming down," she shouted below. "You, ma'am?" "No, it's too dangerous. Call someone younger," replied Arthur, his voice breaking. "Young man, if there was someone younger willing to help, you wouldn't have been down there for 2 days," Martha retorted, continuing her descent. It took her almost 20 minutes to reach the bottom of the crater, where she found Arthur lying near a small puddle of water that had formed in the center. He was a man in his 50s, with dirty clothes and a face marked by pain and despair. His left leg was visibly broken, swollen, and badly positioned. "How did you end up here, boy?" asked Martha, kneeling beside him. Arthur tried to smile, but the pain wouldn't let him. "I was trying to get my grandson's kite. The wind brought it here, and I thought I could climb down just a little. The rope I brought snapped." "And your family? Aren't they looking for you?" Arthur's silence was more eloquent than any answer. Martha immediately understood that she wasn't the only one there who had been abandoned by their own children. "They don't know I left home," he finally admitted. "After I closed the auto repair shop and couldn't pay the bills anymore, my son said I was just dead weight. He said it was better if I just disappeared." Martha felt a painful connection with those words. She examined his leg carefully, remembering the times she used to bandage her children and neighbors when she was young. "The leg is broken, but it's not set wrong. It might hurt a lot, but you won't lose it," she said, trying to sound optimistic. "Are you hungry?" "Very. I've only had this water here." He pointed to the small puddle. Martha opened her purse and took out a loaf of bread that was left over from breakfast and a small bottle of water. "Eat slowly," she instructed, breaking the bread into pieces. "I need to figure out how we're going to get out of here." While Arthur ate, Martha examined the place where they had fallen. The crater was deeper than she had imagined, and the walls were too steep for a safe climb, especially with an injured man. But her practical mind, used to solving problems on her own, was already working on possibilities. "Arthur, do you know anything about ropes and knots?" she asked. "A little. I worked as a mechanic for 40 years. I deal with steel cable, that kind of thing." "Then you can teach me. Because I'm going to need to climb up to get help and supplies." "You can't climb alone, ma'am. It's too dangerous." Martha laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "Boy, what do you think is more dangerous? Climbing this crater, or going back to a life where my own children threw me away like old trash?" Arthur fell silent, understanding that they were both there for the same reason. They had nothing left to lose. "All right," he agreed, "but promise you'll be careful." Martha spent the rest of the day studying the best route to climb. Arthur, despite the pain, helped her by identifying the firmest rocks and the best footholds. When night fell, she improvised a bed with dry leaves that the wind had piled up on one of the edges of the crater. "Early tomorrow I'll climb," she said, lying down next to Arthur to share their body heat. "And I'll bring what we need to get you out of here." During the night, Arthur had a fever because of the infection starting to form in his leg. Martha spent hours applying cold water compresses to his forehead and talking to keep him awake. It was in those silent hours that the two began sharing their stories. Arthur told her about the auto repair shop he inherited from his father and how he fought to keep it running, even when new cars started needing special parts he couldn't afford. He talked about his 8-year-old grandson, who was his only joy, but whom he could barely see because his daughter-in-law forbade visits. Martha spoke about the years raising 3 children alone, working as a seamstress by day and a cleaner by night to pay for their private school. She told how she saved penny by penny so they could study and have a better life than hers, and how, now that they were all successful, she had become just an inconvenience. "You know what's the saddest part?" she said, looking at the stars appearing through the opening of the crater. "It's that we spend our whole lives taking care of other people, and now that we need care, there's no one left." "You have me for you," Arthur whispered. "And I have you for me." When the sun rose, Martha prepared for the climb. Arthur had improved a bit during the night, but he was still very weak. She sharpened one end of his cane against a rough stone and used her belt to tie the bag onto her back. The climb was even harder than the descent. Several times she had to stop to catch her breath, and once she almost slipped when a stone came loose. But her determination to help Arthur kept her steady. It wasn't just about saving him. It was about proving to herself that she was still useful, that she still had value. When she finally reached the surface, the sun was already high. Martha looked around the central square, which was empty, except for a few street vendors setting up their stalls. She needed rope, first aid supplies, and food. But first, she needed someone who would believe her story. She headed to Miller's pharmacy, owned by a man she had known since her youth and who had always treated her with respect. "Martha," he exclaimed when he saw her come in with her dirty, torn clothes. "What happened to you?" "Mr. Miller, I need your help and I don't have time for a long explanation. There's an injured man at the bottom of the square's crater. I need bandages, infection ointment, painkillers, and a strong rope." Mr. Miller looked at her with concern. "Martha, are you sure you didn't hit your head? What's this story about a man in the crater? I went down there and found him. He's had a broken leg for 2 days. If I don't do something soon, he could have serious complications." "You went down into the crater? Martha, that's crazy. And where are your children? Do they know where you are?" Martha took a deep breath. She didn't have time for pride. "My children put me into an assisted living facility this morning, or at least they tried to. But I found this man who needs help, and I'm not going to abandon him like I was abandoned." Mr. Miller studied her face for a long moment. He had known Martha for decades and knew she wasn't one to make up stories. "All right, I'll give you what you need. But I'm also going to call the town's volunteer firefighter to help." "No," Martha said quickly. "Not yet. First, let me go down with the medicine and take care of him. Then we can think about the rescue." "Why, Martha?" She hesitated, trying to find words to explain something she barely understood. "Because for the first time in months, I feel useful. I feel needed. And I don't want that to end, just yet." Mr. Miller sighed, but began gathering the materials she had asked for. "You've always been stubborn, Martha. Ever since you were a girl, I hope you know what you're doing." With a small backpack borrowed from Mr. Miller, Martha returned to the crater carrying medicine, bandages, an old mountain rope he had saved from more adventurous times, and enough food for 2 days. The descent was easier now that she knew the path. Arthur greeted her with a relieved smile. "I thought maybe you'd changed your mind," he said. "I've never changed my mind about anything important in my life. I'm not going to start now," she replied, opening the backpack. "Now let's take care of that leg properly." Martha cleaned the wound carefully and applied antibiotic ointment. Arthur groaned in pain but didn't complain. She immobilized the leg using straight branches she found and the bandages, remembering techniques she had learned decades ago in a first aid course. "Are you a nurse?" asked Arthur, impressed by her skill. "A seamstress. But when you raise 3 kids on your own, you learn a little bit of everything. Nurse, teacher, mechanic, psychologist. And a cook too?" he asked, watching her open the lunchboxes that Mr. Miller had prepared. "That one I made myself. I took it to the pharmacist as thanks for the medicine." They ate in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. The medicine had eased Arthur's pain, and he could concentrate better. "Martha, can I ask you a question?" "Sure." "Why didn't you go up and call the firefighter right away? Why are you down here with me?" Martha stopped eating and looked at him. "Because up there, I'm just an old woman getting in my children's way. Down here, I'm someone you need. It's been a long time since anyone truly needed me." Arthur nodded, understanding perfectly. "Your children are ungrateful, Martha. You raised them alone. You must have sacrificed a lot." "Too much," she admitted. "But I don't regret it. What I regret is not keeping anything for myself. I always thought that when I got old they would repay me somehow. What a fool. What are you going to do when we get out of here?" Martha thought about the question as she organized the medicine. "I don't know. For the first time in my life, I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow. It's scary, but it's also kind of freeing." "I know what I'm going to do," said Arthur. "I'm going to apologize to my grandson. I'm going to explain that his grandfather isn't a failure, just had some problems. And I'm going to teach him how to fly a kite properly, so he doesn't have to go down into dangerous craters anymore." Martha laughed. "Good idea. And maybe I'll learn too. I've never flown a kite in my life." "Really? You missed out on one of the best things about childhood." "I missed out on a lot. I got married early, got pregnant early, was widowed early. But I don't complain. Every choice I made brought me here." Arthur watched her for a few moments. "You have a strength that I wish I had." "You have that strength, Arthur. Otherwise you wouldn't have lasted 2 days here alone. Otherwise you wouldn't have tried to get your grandson's kite even knowing the risk. When night fell again, the two were more comfortable with each other. Arthur had made a small fire using dry twigs and matches that Martha had brought, and they warmed themselves as they talked about their lives. "You know, Martha, I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" "When we get out of here, how about we don't go back to the life we had before? How about we invent a new life?" Martha looked at him with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "I have a small house on the outskirts of the city. 2 rooms, a yard. It's a bit messy because I'm not good at housekeeping, but there's space for 2 people. You could stay there, help me organize things, and I'd help you with whatever you need." "Arthur, you don't even know me that well." "I know enough. I know you are brave, generous, and you don't give up on people. I know you have skillful hands and a good heart. That is more than I know about anyone else in my life." Martha fell silent, considering the proposal. The idea of not going home, of not having to face her children and the humiliation of the assisted living facility was tempting, but it was also frightening. What if it doesn't work out? What if we don't get used to each other? Then we try something else, but at least we try together, instead of giving up alone. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life." Martha reached out her hand to him. "Then it's settled. But first, let's get out of here." On the 3rd day, Arthur was much better. The infection had subsided with the antibiotics, and he could move a little, leaning on Martha. They began to plan the climb together. "The rope you brought is good, but it's not long enough to pull me all the way up," Arthur analyzed. "We'll need to do this in stages." "What do you mean?" "You go up first and tie the rope to one of the trees in the square. Then you come back down halfway and help me climb up to there. Then we repeat the process until we reach the top." It was a risky plan, but it was all they had. Martha climbed up first, with more ease now that she knew every rock and every foothold. When she reached the top, she secured the rope to a sturdy tree and tested it several times to make sure it would hold both of their weight. The first stage went well. Arthur, despite the pain, managed to hoist himself up to a small natural ledge halfway down the crater. But that's when they encountered a problem. Some people had gathered in the square and were watching the strange commotion. "Mrs. Martha," shouted a familiar voice, "what are you doing there?" It was Mrs. Higgins, a gossipy neighbor who always knew everyone's business. "I'm helping an injured man," Martha replied, trying not to lose focus. "What injured man? Where is he?" "Down here," Arthur called out, waving from the ledge where he was. Mrs. Higgins ran to call more people, and within minutes there was a small crowd surrounding the crater. Among them, to Martha's despair, were her 3 children. "Mom!" shouted Gregory. "What the hell are you doing there?" "Saving a life," she answered, without stopping work on the rope. "Have you gone completely crazy?" Deborah seemed on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "Get out of there now." "I'm not leaving without Arthur." Kevin tried a different approach. "Mum, let us call the fire department. You've done your part. Now let the professionals take over." "No need for the fire department," said Martha. "We're managing to climb up on our own." "No, you're not," said a new voice. It was Sergeant Brian, the town's volunteer firefighter. "Mrs. Martha, I admire your courage, but this has become a rescue operation. I'm going to have to ask you to come up and let me take over." Martha looked at Arthur, who was listening to the whole conversation. "Go, Martha," he said. "You already saved me. Now let them finish the job." With a heavy heart, Martha climbed the last few meters and found herself surrounded by a crowd of worried and curious faces. Her children immediately approached. "Mom, we've been looking for you since yesterday," said Gregory. "You disappeared right when we were going to get your things. We were desperate." "Desperate?" Martha stared at them. "You were desperate at the possibility that I had solved on my own the problem you wanted to outsource." "Don't talk like that, Mom," begged Deborah. "We were genuinely worried." "Worried about what? About the possibility of having to cancel your plans to look for me?" Sergeant Brian interrupted the family argument. "Mrs. Martha, I need you to tell me exactly what happened here. How you found this man, how long he's been down there, what condition he was in when you found him." Martha told the whole story, only omitting the part about her initial attempt to do something drastic. Brian listened closely, asking technical questions about Arthur's injuries and the care she had provided. "You saved his life," the firefighter said when she finished. 2 more days down there, and he could have had serious complications. And the bandage you put on his leg is perfect. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us starting out. Now, continuing. Gregory pulled Martha aside while the firefighter organized Arthur's final rescue. Mom, we need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Gregory. You've made it very clear what you think of me. We were wrong, admitted Deborah, approaching. Seeing you here, what you did. We realized we might have made a hasty decision. Might have. Martha laughed without humor. You decided to put me in a home because you think I'm useless. And now that you've seen I can still save a life, you want to change your minds? Kevin, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. Mom, we were worried about your safety, the forgetfulness, the falls. What forgetfulness, Kevin? What falls? I tripped once on the bath mat and you turned that into proof of senility. And that time you forgot the stove on. It was once. Once in 72 years of life. Have you never forgotten anything? Deborah tried to touch her mother's arm, but Martha pulled away. Mom, maybe we overdid it. Maybe the assisted living facility isn't necessary yet. Yet? Martha shook her head. You don't understand anything. It's not about necessity. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging that I still have value, that I still have things to contribute. At that moment, Arthur was brought up on a makeshift stretcher by the volunteer firefighters. Despite the pain, he smiled when he saw Martha. Thank you, he said, reaching out his hand to her. You literally saved my life. We saved each other, Martha replied, squeezing his hand. Sergeant Brian approached Martha's children. You should be very proud of your mother. What she did here was heroic. I don't know many people of any age who would have the courage to go down into that crater to help a stranger. Gregory, Deborah, and Kevin stood in silence, clearly embarrassed. We're taking Arthur to the community health center, Brian said. Mrs. Martha, would you like to come along? Since you cared for him these past days, it would be good if you could explain to the doctor what was done. Of course I will, Gregory interrupted. Mom, after the health center, come home with me. We'll talk all this over. No, I won't, Gregory. What do you mean? I'm going to Arthur's house. I'm going to help him recover. Mom, you don't even know this man. I know him better than I know you. At least I know he values me. Arthur, from the stretcher, tried to intervene. Martha, they're your family. I don't want to cause trouble. Arthur, you're not causing any trouble. The trouble was there before I met you. Deborah was visibly upset. Mom, you can't go live with a stranger. What will people think? They'll think the same thing they always have, that Martha is a woman who isn't afraid to work and take care of people. And for the first time in a long time, that will be true again. At the community health center, while the doctor examined Arthur, Martha talked with the nurse about the care he would need during his recovery. The nurse was impressed by the practical knowledge Martha showed. Do you have experience with medical care? The nurse asked. I have experience with life, Martha replied. When you live 72 years, you learn a little bit of everything. Arthur would need to stay immobilized for a few weeks, do physical therapy and take medication for the infection. The doctor was worried about who would take care of him, since he had revealed he had no close family willing to help. I'll take care of him, Martha said simply. Mom, Gregory had entered the room. You can't make a decision like that without talking to us. Why? When you decided to put me in a home, did you talk to me? The doctor looked uncomfortable at the family argument. Look, I don't get involved in family matters, but I can say the patient will need constant care for the next few weeks. If you commit to taking care of him, I'll authorize his discharge. I commit, Martha said firmly. Gregory sighed, seeing he couldn't dissuade his mother. Then we'll help too, with money for medicine, food, those things. I don't need your help, Martha said. I have my savings. Mom, please let us help. It's the least we can do. Arthur, who had been listening from the bed, spoke up. Martha, accept their help. Not for them, but for us. The recovery will be smoother if we don't have to worry about money. Martha considered the proposal. All right, but let's make one thing clear. This isn't charity. It's a contribution to the care of someone you also abandoned. Gregory lowered his head, acknowledging the truth in his mother's words. Arthur's house was indeed small, but clean and well organized. It had a living room connected to a tiny kitchen, a small bedroom and a simple bathroom. The backyard was what caught Martha's attention the most. There was space for a vegetable garden and some fruit trees that had been neglected. "This is where you're going to stay?" asked Deborah, clearly disapproving. "This is where I'm going to live," Martha corrected. "For the first time in months, I'm going to truly live, not just exist." Arthur was set up in the bedroom, and Martha improvised a bed in the living room with mattresses Gregory brought. In the first few days, she devoted herself entirely to his care: medication on time, physical therapy exercises, dressings, proper nutrition. But she also started taking care of the house. She organized the kitchen, cleaned every corner, mended torn clothes that Arthur had let pile up. In the backyard, she began planting a small vegetable garden with seeds she bought with her savings. "Martha, you don't have to do all this," Arthur said, watching her plant lettuce on a sunny afternoon. "I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to. It's been a long time since I did anything because I wanted to." The children visited almost every day, always with excuses about checking if everything was all right. Martha knew they were trying to find reasons to criticize her decision, but they found none. She was clearly more cheerful, more active, and happier than she had been in months. "Mom, are you really okay here?" Kevin asked during a visit. "Better than I've been in a long time. But don't you miss your house?" "That house turned into a museum of my loneliness, Kevin. Here I have purpose again." Deborah watched Martha prepare an herbal tea for Arthur. "You seem like a different person," she commented. "I'm the same person. Only now I have someone who truly needs me, and that makes all the difference." Gregory, who had always been the most resistant to the situation, began to observe more closely the dynamic between Martha and Arthur. He saw how she moved through the house with authority, how she took care of the details, how she talked with Arthur about future plans. There was an energy in his mother that he hadn't seen in years. "Arthur," Gregory said one afternoon, when Martha had gone out to buy medicine, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are your intentions with my mother serious?" Arthur laughed, despite the pain. "Your intentions with your mother are serious," he countered. "What do you mean?" "Gregory, your mother saved my life. She gave me a reason to live again. My intentions are as serious as they get, to repay the care she's giving me, to value someone who deserves to be valued, and to build a true friendship with one of the bravest people I've ever met." Gregory was silent, processing the answer. "And you?" Arthur continued. "What are your intentions? Because if it's to convince her to go back to that loneliness you created for her, you can give up. She won't." "I just want what's best for my mother." "Then stop trying to control what's best for her and let her decide. She's lived 72 years and raised 3 kids on her own. I think she knows how to choose what's good for her life." By the 3rd week, Arthur could already walk with crutches. Martha accompanied him to the backyard to show off the progress of the vegetable garden. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the first seedlings beginning to sprout. "In a few weeks we'll have lettuce, tomatoes, bell peppers, and the medicinal plants are growing well too." "You have a knack for everything," Arthur said, admiring her work. "It's not a knack, it's enjoyment. I've always liked watching things grow and develop. That's why I loved raising my children so much. And them? Are they accepting the situation better?" "They are. At least they've stopped insisting I go back home. I think they've realized I'm not going to change my mind." "And if they genuinely wanted you to come back? If they apologized, promised to treat you better?" Martha thought about the question as she watered the plants. "You know, Arthur, some things in life you can't undo. When they decided I was a burden, something inside me broke. Even if they changed now, I couldn't forget how I felt that day." "But can you forgive?" "I can, and I do. But forgiving doesn't mean going back to the same situation. It means accepting that they're human, that they made a mistake, and moving on." Arthur steadied himself better on the crutches to look Martha in the eyes. "And moving on means staying here with me?" It means building a new life, the way we choose. If you want my company, I'll stay. If at any point you want me to leave, I'll go. No drama, no demands. I want your company, Martha. Not just while I'm recovering. I want us to be a chosen family since the families we were born into let us down. Chosen family, Martha repeated, liking the expression. I'd never thought of it like that, but that's exactly it. That evening, Arthur managed to have dinner at the kitchen table for the first time since the accident. Martha had made a soup with vegetables from the garden and homemade bread she'd learned to make by watching videos online. It's delicious, Arthur said. It's been years since I ate food made with love. Well, get used to it, because I intend to cook for us for a long time. Martha, can I ask you something personal? All your questions are personal, she laughed. Go ahead. Do you regret anything in life? Martha stopped eating and thought. I regret wasting so much time trying to please people who were never going to be satisfied. I regret not saving more time for myself. Of not having traveled, not having dated after I was widowed, not having done things I wanted to do just because I thought they weren't appropriate for my age. And now? Do you intend to make up for lost time? I intend to make the most of the time I have left, and for the first time I'm going to do it without asking anyone's permission. During the 4th week, Martha received an unexpected visit. It was Lucy, her 16-year-old granddaughter, who had always been her favorite, even though she never admitted it openly. Grandma, can I talk to you? Of course, my dear. Sit here with me. Lucy looked around the little house with curiosity. Grandma, is it true you saved a man's life in a crater? It's true. Why? Everyone at school is talking about it. They say you're a hero. Martha laughed. Hero is an exaggeration. I just did what any decent person would do. But Grandma, not everyone would have the courage to climb down into a crater to help a stranger. Lucy, when you have nothing left to lose, you find courage you didn't even know you had. You had nothing to lose? Martha looked at her granddaughter, deciding to be honest. That day, your parents and your aunts and uncles decided I should go to an assisted living facility. They said I was getting in the way of their lives. Lucy looked shocked. They actually said that? They did. And you know what's worse? They thought they were doing what was best for me. Is that why you came to live here? I came because I found someone who values me. Someone who understands that age doesn't mean uselessness. Lucy was silent for a few moments. Grandma, can I say something? Of course. I think my dad, my mum, and my aunts and uncles are idiots. Lucy. It's true, Grandma. You're the smartest and strongest person I know. If they can't see that, that's their problem. Martha felt her eyes fill with tears. Thank you, my love. Knowing that at least you understand means a lot to me. Grandma, can I come visit you anytime? Whenever you want. There will always be room for you in this house. Arthur, who had overheard the conversation from the living room, joined them in the kitchen. So you're the famous granddaughter, he said, smiling. Your grandma talks about you all the time. And you're the man she saved, Lucy replied. You owe her a lot. I owe her my life, and I intend to spend the rest of it repaying her. Lucy liked Arthur immediately. He had a kind and respectful way about him, very different from what she imagined when her parents talked about that strange man your grandmother is taking care of. Grandma, the house is looking beautiful, Lucy said, observing the improvements Martha had made. There's still a lot to do. Arthur has many ideas for improving the backyard, and I want to expand the vegetable garden. Can I help during school break? Martha and Arthur looked at each other and smiled. Of course you can, said Arthur. We can always use more willing hands to work. Lucy's visit brought new energy to the house. She came back several times over the following weeks, always bringing joy and curiosity. She helped Martha plant new seedlings, learned to make bread with her, and listened to Arthur tell stories about his time as a mechanic. Grandma, you look 10 years younger, Lucy commented one afternoon. I feel 10 years younger. Sometimes I feel even younger than that. What changed? What changed is that now I wake up every day knowing I'm needed. that I have important things to do, that someone counts on me." Lucy looked at Arthur, who was fixing a broken faucet. "And Mr. Arthur? Has he changed too since you arrived?" "A lot. At first he was just as discouraged as I was. He thought his life was over. Now he's already making plans to reopen a small auto repair shop right here in the backyard." "Really? Really?" "He has so much knowledge to offer. He just needed someone to believe in him." Arthur approached them, wiping his hands with a towel. "Talking about me?" he asked, smiling. "Talking about how you two saved each other," said Lucy. "That's true," Arthur agreed. "Your grandmother saved me from the depths, but she also saved me from sadness. And I hope I'm doing the same for her." "You are," said Martha. "For the first time in a long time, I have plans for the future. Plans that I chose myself." Arthur's recovery was practically complete by the end of the second month. He could already walk normally and had started receiving some clients at the makeshift auto repair shop he set up in the backyard. They were small jobs, but they brought him immense satisfaction. "Martha, I need to tell you something," he said one night after dinner. "Go ahead." "I'm in love with you." Martha stopped washing the dishes and turned to him. "Arthur, let me finish. I know it might seem strange that we've known each other for a short time, that we're no longer young. But what I feel for you is real. It's true love, mature, based on admiration and companionship." Martha dried her hands on the dish towel and sat down at the table with him. "I feel something special for you too, Arthur. But I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid I'm confusing gratitude with love. Afraid I'm being naive like a lovesick teenager. Afraid of ruining the good friendship we've built." Arthur took her hand. "Martha, I'm 58. You're 72. We don't have time to be afraid of true feelings. If it's love, let's live that love. If it doesn't work out, at least we tried. And what if my children are scandalized? Your children will have to accept that you're an adult woman free to make your own decisions about your love life. And what if the people in town talk? They'll talk anyway. They're already talking about us living in the same house. At least now they'll have a real reason to gossip." Martha laughed, feeling her heart race like it hadn't in decades. "Arthur, I agree to date you, but let's take it slow, okay? With all the slowness in the world, we have the rest of our lives to discover what this love can become." Their first kiss happened 3 days later, while they were watering the garden together in the late afternoon. It was a soft, tender kiss, full of promises and hope. Lucy was the first person to notice the change in their relationship. "Grandma, are you dating Mr. Arthur?" she asked directly. "Why do you ask?" "Because you two look like you're in love, and because he treats you even more special than before." Martha decided to be honest with her granddaughter. "Yes, we're dating." "That's great," Lucy exclaimed. "He makes you happy, and that's what matters. You don't think it's strange? A woman my age dating?" "Grandma, love has no age. If you found someone who truly loves you, you have to enjoy it." The reaction from Martha's children was less enthusiastic. Gregory in particular was disturbed by the news. "Mom, are you sure about what you're doing?" "Absolutely. But you barely know this man. What if he's taking advantage of you?" "Gregory, I saved his life. If anyone is taking advantage of anyone here, it's me taking advantage of his gratitude." "Mom, that's not it. It's just..." "Just what, Gregory? Can't you accept that I'm still a woman capable of feeling love and being loved?" Deborah tried to be more diplomatic. "Mom, we just want to make sure you're being cautious. Relationships at your age can be complicated. Relationships at any age can be complicated, Deborah. The difference is that at my age, I know exactly what I want and what I won't tolerate." Kevin, who had always been more reserved, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Mom, are you two planning to get married?" Martha and Arthur exchanged glances. "We don't know yet," Arthur replied. "We've only been dating a week, but if it came to that, it would be our decision." "Does that mean if you got married, our mother wouldn't inherit her house?" asked Gregory. "Gregory," Martha scolded, "what kind of question is that?" "It's a practical question, Mom. We need to know how this affects the family's finances. Arthur stood up from the table where they were talking. "Martha, I'm going to take a walk in the backyard so you all can talk as a family." When he left, Martha faced her 3 children. "You really want to talk about money? Let's talk. You're worried about an inheritance you don't even know will exist when I'm gone. But you never worried about valuing me while I'm alive." "Mom, it's not about money," Deborah lied. "Yes, it is about money. What do you think Arthur is interested in me for? My fortune? I sewed my whole life, lived in a simple house, drove an old car. What fortune do you think I have?" Gregory lowered his head, embarrassed. "We didn't mean to offend. You already offended, once again. First, you decided I was incapable of taking care of myself. Now you've decided I'm incapable of judging a man's intentions." Kevin tried to smooth things over. "Mom, we just want to protect you." "Where were you when I needed protection from loneliness, from the feeling of being useless, from the pain of feeling abandoned by my own children?" The 3 fell silent. "Arthur protects me every day," Martha continued. "He protects me from sadness, from the feeling that I'm no good for anything, from the idea that my life is over." "What do you want to protect me from?" "Happiness?" Deborah started to cry. "Mom, we didn't want it to come to this. We were wrong, okay? We were wrong from the start." "You were indeed wrong, and you keep on being wrong by trying to control my life instead of simply supporting me." Gregory got up and went to call Arthur back. "Arthur, please come back." When Arthur returned, Gregory addressed him directly. "Arthur, I need to apologize. The questions I asked were inappropriate and offensive." "You don't need to apologize to me, Gregory. You need to apologize to your mother. She's the most honest person I know, and she deserves to be treated with respect by her own children." "Mom, I'm sorry," said Gregory. "We're trying to get used to all these changes." "It's not about getting used to them, Gregory. It's about respecting my choices, even when you don't understand them." Deborah approached Martha. "Mum, if you're happy with Arthur, then we support you. That's what matters." "That's what I wanted to hear from day one," said Martha. "Was it really that hard?" In the months that followed, Martha and Arthur's relationship deepened. They developed a pleasant routine. They woke up early to tend the garden, had breakfast together. Arthur worked at the auto repair shop, while Martha took care of the house and garden. They had lunch together, rested during the hottest part of the afternoon, and spent the evenings talking or watching TV cuddled up. Arthur's auto repair shop began to gain a reputation in town. He had an honest approach with customers, always explaining exactly what needed to be done and charging fair prices. Martha helped him with the administrative side, organizing the accounts and scheduling the services. "You know, Martha, I never thought I'd have a business partner at 58, Arthur said one afternoon. "And I never thought I'd learn to deal with car parts at 72, she replied, wiping a tool. "We make a good team. The best team I've ever been a part of." Gradually, Martha's children came to accept the relationship. Gregory still showed some resistance, but Deborah and Kevin began including Arthur in family events. Lucy became a frequent visitor and developed a genuine friendship with Arthur, who taught her how to fix bicycles and other objects. "Grandma, are you two going to get married?" Lucy asked one afternoon. "Why do you ask?" "Because you act like a married couple, and because everyone in town thinks you're already married." Martha and Arthur looked at each other and laughed. "Maybe one day," Martha said. "But we're not in a hurry." "It's just that it would be nice to have a wedding in the family," Lucy said. "And it would be even nicer if it were people who truly love each other." Arthur took Martha's hand. "Lucy is right. Maybe it's time we made it official." "Arthur, are you proposing to me in front of my granddaughter?" "I am." "Martha Harrison, will you marry me?" Martha looked at him, then at Lucy, whose eyes were shining with emotion, then back at him. "Yes, Arthur Sterling, I'll marry you." The news of the engagement caused varied reactions in the family. Lucy was ecstatic and offered to help with the preparations. Deborah and Kevin were surprised but supported the decision. Gregory took longer to process the information. "Mum, are you sure?" he asked in a private conversation. "I am, Gregory. For the first time in a long time, I'm absolutely sure about something." "What if it doesn't work out? What if it does?" "Gregory, I lived 40 years alone after your father left me. 40 years taking care of just you all and myself. Now I've found someone who wants to share his life with me. Even if it doesn't work out, at least I'll try to be happy." Gregory sighed. "Then I support it, Mom. If that's what makes you happy, I support it. Thank you, son. That's all I ever wanted. Support, not control." The wedding was set for 3 months later, a simple ceremony at the town courthouse. Martha insisted it be something intimate, just for close family and a few friends. She sewed her own wedding dress, a modest but elegant model in a light pink tone. Arthur bought a new suit and asked Gregory to be his best man, a gesture of reconciliation that moved everyone. Martha chose Lucy as her maid of honor. "Grandma, you look beautiful," Lucy said on the morning of the wedding. "I feel beautiful, my granddaughter. I feel like a real bride." "You are a real bride, and you're going to be very happy." The ceremony was emotional. When the judge asked if Arthur accepted Martha as his wife, he answered with a firm voice, "I do, and I promise to cherish every day God gives us together." When it was Martha's turn, she looked into Arthur's eyes and said, "I do, and I promise that together we'll build the best phase of our lives." There was no big party, just a lunch at their home with family and a few neighbors who had become friends. Martha cooked for days to prepare a special meal, and Arthur decorated the backyard with lights and flowers they had planted together. "Speech! Speech!" the guests shouted after lunch. Arthur stood up and asked for silence. "I want to thank everyone here today, especially Martha's children, who learned to accept me as part of the family, and I want to say something about my wife." He paused, clearly emotional. "A few months ago I was at the bottom of a crater, injured and giving up on life. Martha came down to get me, literally, but she didn't just save my life. She saved me from sadness, from abandonment, from the feeling that I was worthless." The guests listened in silence. "Today, at 58, I married a woman of 72, and I can say I'm living the best phase of my life because age doesn't define who we are. What defines who we are is our ability to love and be loved." The applause was warm. Martha stood up to hug her husband, and many of those present had tears in their eyes. "Now it's my turn," said Martha. "I want to thank everyone here, especially my children, who learned that a mother also has the right to be happy." She looked at Gregory, Deborah, and Kevin. "I love you. I have always loved you and will always love you. But love cannot be a reason to erase who we are. For a long time I forgot that before being your mother, I was Martha, a woman with dreams, desires, and the right to happiness." She took Arthur's hand. "Arthur reminded me of who I am, and he gave me the courage to live that person I had forgotten. At 72 years old, I am restarting my life, and I have never been so happy." The months following the wedding were a time of adaptation and discoveries. Martha and Arthur learned to live as a couple, not just as mutual caregivers. They discovered shared tastes they didn't know they had, like the pleasure of watching old movies while cuddled on the couch. Arthur taught Martha how to drive. She had always wanted to learn, but never had the opportunity when she was young. Now, at 72, she was taking driving lessons with her husband in the backyard of the house. "Arthur, I'm going to hit the pole," she said nervously, gripping the steering wheel of the old car he had fixed up for her to practice. "No, you won't. You have better reflexes than a lot of young people out there. You just need confidence. If I manage to get my driver's license, I'll be the first woman my age in Eureka Springs to drive. And I'll be proud to have such a modern wife." Martha managed to get her license on the 3rd try. The emotion of receiving the document was immense, as if it were official proof that she was still capable of learning new things. "Now I can take you for a ride," she said to Arthur. "Where do you want to go first?" "To the beach. I've always wanted to see the ocean." The trip to the beach was the first big outing they had as a couple. Martha drove part of the way, proud of her new skill. When they reached the coast, she was silent for several minutes, just contemplating the vastness of the ocean. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined," she said finally. "And we can come as often as we want," Arthur replied. "Now we have the time and freedom for that." They spent 3 days at the beach, staying at a simple inn. Martha collected shells, walked on the sand, felt the seawater on her feet. Arthur watched her, happy to see her fulfill dreams she had kept for decades. "Arthur, thank you," she said on the last night of the trip. "For what? For helping me live again. For reminding me that there is still a lot of life ahead. Thank you for teaching me that it's never too late to start over." Back in Eureka Springs, they found a surprise. Arthur's auto repair shop had gained new customers during their absence, and there was a waiting list for services. His reputation as an honest and competent mechanic was spreading to neighboring towns. "I think we're going to need to expand the shop," said Arthur, looking at the list of pending services. "Then let's expand," replied Martha. "We have enough savings for that." "Our savings," corrected Arthur. "Now everything is ours." The expansion of the shop brought new challenges and opportunities. Arthur hired a young apprentice, Justin, a 20-year-old young man who had left high school without prospects. Martha offered to teach the young man to read better and do math, skills he needed to work at the shop. "Mrs. Martha, why are you wasting time teaching me?" asked Justin one afternoon during their studies. "I'm not wasting time, I'm investing in a person with potential. But I'm just a poor boy who barely knows anything." "Justin, I was also a poor girl who barely knew anything. I raised 3 children on my own and I made it. You'll make it too, but not alone. Everyone needs someone who believes in them." Justin had become almost like a son to Martha and Arthur. He lived in a small house with his mother and 3 younger siblings, and he often had dinner with the couple. Martha enjoyed cooking for him and keeping up with his progress in school. "You know, Martha, we've kind of adopted this boy," Arthur commented one night. "And what's wrong with that? We have plenty of love to share." "Nothing at all. I just find it funny how our family kept growing. First it was just the 2 of us. Then your kids accepted us. Now we have Justin. And whoever else shows up needing affection," Martha finished. "Our home will always have an open door for anyone who needs it." A year after their wedding, Martha and Arthur received an unexpected visit. It was Arthur's grandson, Leo, who was 10 years old, accompanied by his mother. "Dad, he begged so much to meet his grandfather that I decided to bring him," said Arthur's daughter-in-law, clearly embarrassed. "Grandpa Arthur!" Leo shouted, running into his grandfather's arms. Arthur was too emotional to speak. It had been over 2 years since he had last seen his grandson. Martha watched the reunion with a smile, understanding the importance of that moment. "And you must be Grandma Martha," Leo said, approaching her. "Dad said you saved my grandpa." "We saved each other, my angel," Martha replied. "Would you like to have lunch with us?" The visit stretched for the rest of the day. Leo was fascinated by his grandfather's auto repair shop and by Martha's vegetable garden. He helped Arthur fix a part and learned from Martha how to plant tomato seedlings. "Grandpa, can I come more often?" Leo asked when it was time to leave. "Whenever your mom lets you," Arthur replied, looking hopefully at his daughter-in-law. "He can come during school breaks," she said, "if it's not too much trouble." "Trouble?" said Martha. "It'll be a joy to have him here." Leo's occasional presence brought youthful energy into the house. Martha relived the pleasures of taking care of a child, but now without the heavy worries and responsibilities of a mother. She could simply enjoy the boy's company and teach him new things. "Grandma Martha, how did you learn to make such delicious bread?" Leo asked one morning, helping her in the kitchen. "By watching videos on the internet. It's never too late to learn new things." "You watch videos on the internet? That's cool." "Leo, do you think that just because I'm old, I can't learn new technology?" "No, Grandma. It's just that my other grandmother says the internet is for young people." "Your other grandmother is wrong. The internet is for people who are curious, regardless of age." Martha had become an active user of social media, where she shared photos of her garden, recipes she tried out, and special moments with Arthur. She had gained followers who were inspired by her story of starting over. "Arthur, come see this," she said one afternoon, showing him her phone. "What is it?" "An 80-year-old woman from Maine sent me a message. She said our story inspired her to leave the house and look for new activities." "Really?" "Really. There are a lot of people our age who need inspiration to live, not just to exist." Arthur looked at the messages Martha received daily. "Maybe we should do something with this. help other people going through the same situation we went through. What kind of thing? I don't know. Maybe a support group here in town, for older people who feel abandoned or useless. The idea began to take shape in the conversations that followed. Martha and Arthur decided to organize weekly get-togethers at their house for seniors who wanted to share experiences and learn new things. The first meeting had only 3 participants besides them: Mrs. Pearl, a 70-year-old widow who lived alone; Mr. Howard, a 65-year-old retiree who had been feeling depressed since he stopped working; and Mrs. Gloria, 75, who had been rejected by her children in a way similar to Martha. "Folks, the idea here is simple," Martha explained. "We'll meet every Thursday to talk, share experiences, learn new things together. It's not therapy, it's not religion, it's just friendship and companionship." "And what exactly are we going to do?" asked Mrs. Pearl. "Whatever you feel like," Arthur replied. "I can teach basic auto repair for anyone who wants to learn how to take care of their own car. Martha can teach sewing, cooking, gardening. And you can teach what you know too," Martha added. "Everyone here has lived a lot and has knowledge to share." The meetings began to grow. By the 4th meeting, there were already 10 people. By the 10th, there were 15. Martha and Arthur had to rearrange the house to accommodate everyone, and the neighbors started lending chairs. "Martha, I think we've created something important," Arthur said one night, after a particularly lively meeting. "We've created an extended family," she replied. "People who care about each other, who value one another. And that proves that age isn't an end, it's a fresh start." 2 years after the wedding, Martha received an unexpected phone call. It was Gregory with a surprising piece of news. "Mom, Cynthia and I are separating." Martha was silent for a few seconds. "I'm sorry, son, what happened?" "A lot of things, but one of the main ones was that she made me realize how badly I treated you. She said that if I could be so insensitive with my own mother, I could be that way with anyone." "Gregory, Mom, she was right. I was a terrible son. And I only realized that when I saw how you blossomed away from us. You weren't terrible, Gregory. You were human. You made mistakes like everyone does." "Can I come over and talk to you in person?" "Of course you can. This house will always have room for you." Gregory's visit was different from all the previous ones. He arrived without his usual arrogance, clearly shaken by the separation and the reflections it had triggered. "Mom, I want to truly apologize," he said, sitting at the kitchen table where years earlier he'd announced plans to put her in an assisted living facility. "Not just for what we talked about that day, but for a whole life of not valuing you as I should have. Gregory, you were very young when your father abandoned us. You had to grow up too fast, take on responsibilities that weren't yours. Maybe I put too much weight on your shoulders." "No, Mom, you did what you could with what you had. The problem is that I carried that as a burden, instead of seeing it as a demonstration of love." Arthur, who had been listening from the living room, approached. "Gregory, can I say something?" "Sure. Your mother tells me every day how hard it was to raise you two alone, but she never says it as a complaint. She says it with pride, with love. You were a good son. You just lost your way for a while." Gregory looked at Arthur with gratitude. "Thank you for taking such good care of her. We take care of each other. That's how healthy relationships work." From that conversation on, the relationship between Martha and Gregory began to rebuild on stronger foundations. He started visiting regularly, not out of obligation, but out of genuine pleasure in being with his mother. He participated in some of the group meetings she and Arthur organized and was impressed by the positive impact they were having on the community. "Mum, you've become a sort of community leader," he commented during a visit. "I've become a person who found her purpose," corrected Martha, "and I discovered that my purpose is to take care of people and help them find the value they have." "You've always been like that. We just didn't know how to appreciate it. Now you do, and that's what matters." On their 3rd wedding anniversary, Martha and Arthur organized a party to celebrate not only their marriage, but also the progress of the support group they had created. More than 50 people attended, including children and grandchildren of the regular participants. "Everyone," said Arthur during the party, "I want to thank everyone who has been part of this journey with us. 3 years ago, Martha and I were 2 lost and abandoned people. Today we are a large, happy family. A chosen family, Martha completed, based on mutual affection and respect for differences. Justin, who was now 23 years old and had become a competent mechanic, asked to speak. Mrs. Martha, Mr. Arthur, I want to thank you for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself. Today I managed to buy a small house for my mother and siblings, and it all started with the opportunity you gave me. The applause was emotional. Martha had tears in her eyes. Justin, you always had potential. We just helped you see that. Leo, now 13 years old and a regular visitor to their home, also wanted to speak. Grandpa Arthur, Grandma Martha, thank you for teaching me that family isn't just those who share the same blood. It's those who take care, who are present. Lucy, now 19 years old and a university student, gave the final speech of the night. Grandma, when I was little, you taught me to be brave, but it was only seeing you at 72 years old descending into a crater to save a stranger that I understood what true courage really means. You inspired me to follow my dreams, even when they seem impossible. Martha looked around the party, seeing the smiling faces of the people who had become her extended family. She saw her children and grandchildren, saw Arthur surrounded by friends he had made at the auto repair shop, saw the support group participants chatting animatedly among themselves. Arthur, she whispered to her husband, I think we did it. Did what? Turned our pain into purpose, our rejection into acceptance, our abandonment into belonging. Arthur hugged her. And we turned our loneliness into a beautiful family. Months later, Martha and Arthur received an honor from the City Hall of Eureka Springs for the social work they were doing. The mayor highlighted how the support group they created had reduced depression rates among the elderly in the city. Mrs. Martha, Mr. Arthur, said the mayor during the ceremony, you have proven that age is a matter of attitude, not numbers, and you have proven that it is never too late to make a difference in other people's lives. We only did what anyone would do, replied Martha, always modest. No, ma'am, said a woman from the audience. You did what special people do. You turned your own difficulties into strength to help others. That night at home, Martha and Arthur talked about the recognition they had received. Who would have thought that desperate woman who went down into a crater would become an example for an entire city, said Arthur. And who would have thought that that hurt man giving up on life would become one of the most respected mechanics in the region, and a mentor for struggling youth? We proved that there is no age to start over, and that there is no situation from which we cannot rise again if we have determination and support. Martha, can I make a confession? Sure. I get sad thinking about all the time we lost before we met each other. Martha took his hand. Arthur, I don't see it that way. I think we went through everything we went through to get ready for this moment, to be mature enough to build this solid love we have. Maybe, but still, I wish I had more time ahead with you. Then let's make the most of every day as if it were both the last and the first. The last so we don't waste it, the first so we never stop dreaming. 5 years after meeting in the crater, Martha and Arthur had built a life neither of them thought possible. She, at 77, drove her own car, ran a small family business with her husband, led a support group that helped dozens of people, and had healthy relationships with her children and grandchildren. Arthur, at 63, had rebuilt his professional self-esteem, reunited with the grandson he thought he'd lost forever, mentored struggling youth, and found a mature, true love. You know what's most amazing about our story? Martha asked one afternoon as they watered the vegetable garden that now took up the entire backyard. What? That we started out trying to save each other from desperate situations, and along the way, we ended up saving many more people. And we keep saving. Every Thursday, we save someone from loneliness, from feeling useless, from abandonment, and they save us too. They save me from the temptation to settle down, to stop growing. Arthur stopped watering the plants and looked at Martha. Do you know I love you more today than on our wedding day? I do, and do you know why? Because our love keeps growing. It wasn't love at first sight, it was love at first need, And it turned into love by choice, love by admiration, love by companionship. Love for a whole life built together. A life that no one can take away from us anymore. That night, Martha wrote in her journal, a habit she had picked up in recent years. Today marks 5 years since I climbed down into that crater thinking I was running away from life. Actually, I was running toward my real life. I found Arthur, but more than that, I found myself again. I discovered that age is no limit for love, for growth, for social contribution. My children learned to respect me. My grandchildren learned that grandparents can be modern and adventurous. My community learned that older people have a lot to offer, and I learned that it's never too late to be truly happy. If I could go back in time and change anything, I wouldn't change a thing. Every difficult moment brought me here. Every rejection strengthened me to value acceptance when it came. Every tear of sadness prepared me for tears of joy. Arthur sleeps beside me, breathing peacefully. Tomorrow we'll wake up early to tend the garden, receive customers at the auto repair shop, prepare our group's weekly meeting. We'll live another day of the life we chose to build together, and we'll keep proving every day that the end can actually be the beginning. That a crater can be not a hole to get lost in, but a bridge to find yourself. That love has no age and life has no expiration date as long as we have the courage to live it fully. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 6 years after the meeting in the crater, Martha and Arthur's story had become a legend in Eureka Springs and nearby towns. They received letters from people all over the country who were inspired by their journey. Some elderly couples came to visit them to personally see the work they were doing. One day, a television crew came to document their story for a national program about overcoming adversity. "Mrs. Martha, what would you say to people your age who feel abandoned and without hope?" the reporter asked. "I'd say that as long as we're alive, there's always a chance for change. The problem is that we often expect change to come from outside, when really it has to start from within. And how does one start that internal change? First, by stopping feeling like a victim of circumstances. Second, by finding ways to be useful, to contribute. Third, by not being afraid to step out of your comfort zone, even if it's scary at first." Arthur added, "And above all, by not accepting it when other people define what you can or can't do based on your age. Age brings experience, wisdom. It's an asset, not a flaw. Do you have any future projects?" Martha and Arthur looked at each other and smiled. "We're thinking about writing a book," said Martha, "to tell our complete story and the stories of people we've met through our support group." "And maybe expand our work to other cities," Arthur continued. "Help create similar groups elsewhere." After the recording, Martha commented to Arthur, "I never thought our story would one day inspire so many people. It's because our story proves something a lot of people needed to hear, that there's no age limit to being happy, and that there's no situation you can't bounce back from." The book they wrote was released 2 years later and became an unexpected bestseller. From the depths to the sky, a story of starting over at 72 touched thousands of readers and led to speaking invitations across the country. At their first lecture together, in a large city in Maine, Martha was nervous. "Arthur, what if I don't know what to say to so many people?" "You'll tell the truth, your truth. That's what people want to hear." The auditorium was packed, with people of all ages, but especially many older adults accompanied by their adult children. "Folks," Martha began, "I'm not a speaker, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just a retired seamstress who one day made a desperate decision and ended up finding the best phase of her life." The audience laughed, immediately won over by her simplicity. "I came here to tell you that it's never too late to start over. But starting over takes courage. Courage to face those who doubt us. Courage to leave the familiar. Courage to believe we deserve to be happy." An elderly woman in the audience raised her hand. "Mrs. Martha, my children want to put me in an assisted living facility. How did you find the courage to resist?" "First, by talking openly about why they think it's necessary. Sometimes children act out of fear, not malice. Second, by proving through actions that we're still capable. Third, if that still doesn't work, by making our own decisions about our lives. But what if we really do need care? Then we accept the care, but without giving up our dignity. An assisted living facility isn't a prison if it's our choice, based on real needs, not on prejudices about age. Arthur took the floor. The important thing is not to let others decide our lives based solely on our date of birth. Age is a number. What matters is our ability, our will, our mental and physical health. After the lecture, they were approached by dozens of people with similar stories. An 80-year-old woman said she had decided that very day to come out of isolation and look for social activities. A 65-year-old man said he was going to reconcile with his son, whom he hadn't spoken to in years. "Arthur," Martha said at the hotel that night, "I think our work is just beginning." "What do you mean?" "There are so many people who need to hear that they still have value, that they can still contribute, that they can still be happy. We need to keep spreading that message. So let's keep going. We have our health, we have stories to tell, we have the will to help, and we have each other to share this mission." The following years were filled with hard work and accomplishments. Martha and Arthur traveled across the country, giving lectures, helping create support groups similar to the one they had founded, and participating in TV and radio programs. In every city they visited, they planted seeds of hope in people who had given up on dreaming. Through their own example, they proved that age could be synonymous with wisdom, experience, and the ability to contribute, not a burden or uselessness. At 80, Martha still drove, still managed the auto repair shop alongside Arthur, and still coordinated the support group, which now had over 100 regular participants. Arthur, at 68, had become a local reference in mechanics and a mentor to dozens of young people. "You know, Arthur," Martha said one morning, drinking coffee at the kitchen table where they had begun building their life together, "sometimes I think that crater was the best thing that ever happened to us." "Why?" "Because that's where we lost the old versions of ourselves and found who we really were. The version our children couldn't see. The version we ourselves had forgotten existed. Martha, can I confess something?" "Always." "I'm not afraid of getting older anymore. Before I was terrified of every passing year. Now I'm curious about what we'll still discover, build, accomplish. That's because we learned that aging isn't about losing. It's about gaining experience, wisdom, the freedom to be who we truly are, and most of all, gaining time to do what really matters." That afternoon, they received a phone call that moved them deeply. It was a 90-year-old woman from Miami who had read their book and wanted to thank them. "Mrs. Martha, Mr. Arthur, I want you to know that you saved my life," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "What do you mean, Mrs. Agnes?" "Mrs. Agnes. I was getting ready to give up on everything when my daughter gave me your book to read. I thought it was nonsense, but I started reading at her insistence. And what happened? I began to see that my story was like yours. Children who saw me as a burden, grandchildren who barely knew me, a life that seemed over." Martha was moved, listening to the story. "And now, Mrs. Agnes, now I've gone back to studying. I'm taking a computer course for seniors. I started going to a reading group at the library. And believe it or not, I'm dating." Arthur and Martha laughed with joy. "That's wonderful, Mrs. Agnes. At 90, can you believe it? Mr. Howard is 85, also a widower. We met in the computer course and found out we have a lot in common. And your children, how did they react? At first they were shocked, but when they saw how much more cheerful and active I was, they started supporting me. My daughter even said she hadn't seen me this happy in years." "Mrs. Agnes, you're our hero," said Martha. "Proof that our message is reaching where it needs to go. No, my dears, you're the heroes. You gave me my life back." After the call, Arthur and Martha sat in silence for a few minutes, processing the emotion of knowing their story had so deeply impacted the life of someone far away. "Arthur, how many people like Mrs. Agnes are out there, thinking their life is over?" "Many. But how many like Mrs. Agnes will discover there's still so much to live for? I hope many. And I hope our story keeps helping people discover that. It will, Martha. As long as we're alive, we'll keep proving that age is no limit to anything. As the years went by, Martha and Arthur's house had become an informal pilgrimage site for people from all over the country. Letters, emails, and social media messages arrived from people thanking them for the inspiration they found in their story. Justin, the young man they had taken in years ago, now owned his own auto repair shop and had married a girl from town. He and his wife were frequent visitors, always bringing news about their lives. "Mr. Arthur, Mrs. Martha," Justin said during a visit, "did you know that my story has also become an example in town?" "How so?" "People talk about how you gave me a chance when I was just a kid with no prospects. They say I'm proof that it's worth investing in young people." "Justin, you always had potential," said Martha. "We just created the conditions for it to come out. But you created them because you believed in me when even I didn't. And now I want to do the same. I'm thinking about hiring 2 apprentices for my shop." "What a beautiful idea," said Arthur. "That way, the cycle continues." Leo, Arthur's grandson, was now 18 and had decided to study mechanical engineering, inspired by his grandfather. He spent his vacations with his grandparents, learning not just about mechanics, but about life, relationships, and purpose. "Grandpa, Grandma Martha," he said one afternoon, "do you know that you're famous at my school?" "Famous? How?" asked Martha, laughing. "Everyone knows your story. My Portuguese teacher even used your book in a lesson about overcoming adversity." "What a responsibility," commented Arthur. "Being an example for young people. You're the best examples I know of how to truly live life, not just go through it." Lucy, now with a degree in education, had specialized in adult and elderly education, directly inspired by her grandparents' work. She often collaborated with the support group, bringing academic knowledge to complement Martha and Arthur's practical wisdom. "Grandma, I'm developing a project at university based on your work," she told them during a visit. "What kind of project?" "A reverse mentoring program where elderly people teach college students about life experience and the students teach the elderly about new technologies and current trends." "What a wonderful idea," said Arthur. "It'll be a real exchange of knowledge." "Exactly. Breaking the age barrier through mutual learning." Martha's children had also transformed over the years. Gregory, after his separation, had undergone therapy and developed a much deeper understanding of family relationships. Deborah and Kevin had matured their perspective on aging, especially after seeing their mother flourish in her new life. "Mom," said Deborah during a family conversation, "I want to apologize once more for everything we did years ago." "Deborah, you've already apologized many times. You don't need to anymore." "Yes, I do, because now I understand better what we did. It wasn't just lack of consideration. It was ageism. We really believed that you were no longer capable of making decisions about your own life. And now? Now I know that you are more capable than many people half your age, and I know that when I reach your age, I want to be like you, independent, active, and determined." Kevin added, "Mum, you have become our model of how to age well, of how not to let age limit us. Children, you have learned the most important lesson, respecting the elderly not out of pity, but out of recognition of the value they have." Gregory, who had been quiet, spoke up. "Mom, can I ask a question I've always wanted to ask, but never had the courage?" "Of course." "Do you regret raising us alone? Of having dedicated so much to us and so little to herself?" Martha thought carefully before answering. "Gregory, I don't regret raising you all on my own. I regret believing that after you grew up you would automatically understand the sacrifice that entailed and repay me. I should have taught you to value not just what I did for you, but who I was beyond being a mother." "What do you mean?" "I should have kept my own interests, my own dreams, even while raising you. I shouldn't have completely erased myself in the name of motherhood." Arthur, who was listening to the conversation, added, "What your mother is saying is that parents are people too, and people need to maintain their individual identity to be better parents." "Exactly," Martha agreed. "When you discarded me as if I were just a retired mother, it was because I myself had forgotten that I was much more than that." Deborah was moved. "Mom, you made me realize that I can't make the same mistake with my children. I can't erase myself as a person in the name of motherhood." And we can't forget that you are people beyond being our parents, said Gregory. People with the right to dreams, desires, life changes. Now you understand, said Martha, smiling, and that applies to when you reach my age too. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Martha and Arthur organized a party that brought together over 200 people. It was impressive to see how their story had touched so many lives. During the party, they announced a new project: the creation of a foundation to support elderly people in situations of family abandonment. Everyone, said Arthur, in the last few years, we've met hundreds of people in the same situation we were in 10 years ago. Capable and lucid older adults being discarded by families who no longer know what to do with them. So we decided to create an institution that offers not only emotional support, but also practical opportunities for these seniors to rebuild their lives, Martha continued. The New Chapter Foundation will provide legal advice, psychological support, vocational courses adapted for seniors, and assisted living programs for those who need it. The news was met with enthusiastic applause. Several people immediately offered to volunteer or donate. Mrs. Martha, Mr. Arthur, said the mayor of the city, who was present at the party, you have turned Eureka Springs into the national capital of active aging. It's an honor for our city. The work belongs to all of us, Martha replied. We just started a movement that needs to grow. The foundation was created the following year and quickly became a national reference. Martha and Arthur, now 82 and 73 respectively, shared the administration with a team of professionals and volunteers. Martha, Arthur said one morning, while they were reviewing the Foundation's monthly reports, do you realize that we're running an institution that helps hundreds of people a month? I do. And I also realize that this doesn't tire me, it energizes me. Why do you think that is? Because it's our purpose. We found the reason for everything we've been through. To get here and to help others get here too. One day they received a visit from a university researcher who was writing a thesis on active aging in the United States and wanted to study their case. Mrs. Martha, Mr. Arthur, in your opinion, what is the secret to aging well? Not accepting that age is synonymous with limitation, Arthur replied, and staying useful, productive, connected with other people, Martha added. But how do you convince older adults that this is possible? Through example, said Martha. Every senior who lives actively inspires others to do the same. And through social change, added Arthur. Society needs to stop seeing the elderly as burdens and start seeing them as resources. What kind of resources? Experience, wisdom, time available for volunteering, knowledge accumulated over a lifetime, Martha listed. A healthy older person is a living library. And what would you say to families who are considering putting their elderly relatives in a facility? Arthur and Martha exchanged a look, remembering their own experience. Talk honestly about the real needs, said Arthur. Often what looks like a need for institutionalization is actually a lack of patience or understanding. And remember that caring doesn't mean controlling, Martha added. You can look after an elderly person's safety without taking away their autonomy and dignity. And if placement truly becomes necessary, then do it with love, not as a way to discard them, said Martha. Choose a place that treats the elderly person as a person, not a patient, and stay present in their life. The researcher was impressed by their clarity and energy. The two of you are living proof that age can be synonymous with vitality. We're proof that when you find purpose, age becomes irrelevant, Martha replied. At 85, Martha still drove, still cooked for dozens of people at the weekly meetings, still traveled around the country giving lectures. Arthur at 76 still fixed cars, still mentored young people, still planted and harvested the vegetable garden that had become a small orchard. Martha, have you ever thought about slowing down? Deborah asked during a visit. Why? Am I feeling ill? No, Mom. You have energy that makes people half your age jealous. It's just... Well, you've already done so much. Maybe it's time to rest a little. Deborah, rest isn't about sitting still. Rest is doing what you love, and I love everything I do. Arthur laughed. Your mother will only stop when she can't move anymore, and given how well she takes care of her health, that might take a very long time. And you, Arthur? Gregory asked. Don't you think about retiring from the auto repair shop? Retirement isn't about age, it's about desire. As long as I have the will and the ability to work, I'll work. But what if something happens to you two? What if one of you gets sick? Martha and Arthur looked at each other, a conversation they'd had privately many times. Then we'll take care of each other, Martha said simply. That's what couples are for. And if you both get sick at the same time, then you help us, said Arthur. But you help by respecting our wishes, our choices about how we want to live. The important thing is that you understand we're not a problem to be solved, said Martha. We're people to be respected. That night, alone at home, Martha and Arthur talked about their children's concern. Arthur, do you think we're being too stubborn? I think we're being true to ourselves. That's different. But what if they're right? What if we're pushing too hard? Martha, do you feel pushed doing what you do? No, I feel fulfilled. Me too, so we're not pushing anything. We're living. But when the time comes when we really need help, then we'll accept help. But we'll do it while keeping our dignity and our active voice in the decisions. Do you promise that if I become incapacitated, you won't let anyone treat me like a child? I promise, and you promise the same for me. I promise. 2 years later, Arthur had a mild heart attack. Martha, now 87, took care of him during his recovery with the same dedication he had shown her years before when she broke her wrist in a fall. Martha, are you sure you can handle taking care of me by yourself? Arthur asked from the hospital. Arthur, you went down into a crater to get me when I was lost. Now it's my turn to bring you back. But I'm fine. It was just a scare. And you're going to stay fine because I'll make sure of that. During the weeks of recovery, Martha's children offered to hire nurses or take Arthur to a specialized clinic. No need, Martha said firmly. I'll take care of him. Mom, you're not young anymore either. Gregory, I raised 3 children on my own when I was young and broke. Now I'm going to take care of a grown man being older, but with resources and experience. Which situation do you think is harder? Gregory didn't know how to answer. But Mom, if you need anything, I'll ask, like I always did when I really needed it. Arthur's recovery was faster than the doctors expected, largely due to Martha's attentive care and both of their motivation to get back to the active life they led. Doctor, Arthur said at the follow-up appointment, my wife was better than any professional nurse. Does she have experience in medical care? Asked the cardiologist. She has experience in caring for people with love, Martha replied. It's different. And it's more effective, the doctor agreed. Mr. Arthur, your tests are excellent. You can return to normal activities, but with moderation. What is moderation for people our age? Arthur asked. What your body can comfortably handle. You know your limits better than I do. Back to normal life, Arthur and Martha made small adjustments to their routine. They slightly slowed down their work pace, began delegating more responsibilities at the foundation, but kept all the activities that gave them pleasure. You know, Martha, Arthur said one afternoon, resting in the hammock they had set up in the backyard. This scare made me value even more every day we have together. Me too. But it didn't make me want to live less intensely. It made me want to enjoy it even more. That's what I mean. Each day is a gift, but a gift to be opened and used, not kept in a drawer. Arthur, can I ask a question that might sound strange? Of course. Are you afraid of dying? Arthur thought before answering. I'm afraid of dying before you because I know how hard it is to be alone. I'm afraid of dying, leaving things unfinished, but I'm not afraid of death itself. Why? Because I've lived. Truly. Especially these last 15 years with you. When my time comes, I'll be able to say I made the most of it. I feel the same way. And you know what else? I feel that our story will continue even after we're no longer here. How so? Through the people we inspire, the projects we create, the changes we've brought about in how society sees the elderly. Our legacy won't be material. It will be transformational. At 90 years old, Martha received a national tribute as Senior of the Year at an award ceremony promoted by the Ministry of Health. Arthur, at 81, proudly accompanied her at the ceremony in Washington, D.C. "Mrs. Martha," the minister said during the award presentation, "you have become a national symbol of active and successful aging." "Mr. Minister, I am not a symbol of anything. I am just a woman who refused to accept that age is synonymous with uselessness." "And what would you say to other seniors who feel undervalued?" "I would say that value is not something others give us. It is something we recognize in ourselves and make a point of demonstrating. And to the families of these seniors, I would say to see your parents and grandparents as complete people, not as deteriorated versions of who they once were. See what they can still be, not just what they no longer are." The National Award brought even more visibility to their work. They received invitations to participate in international conferences on aging. Their books were translated into other languages, and the foundation they created became a model for similar initiatives in other countries. "Martha," Arthur said one morning, reading emails on the computer they had learned to use at age 80. "We got an invitation to give a lecture in France." "In France? About what?" "About our experience with active aging. They want to learn about our work model." "Do you want to go?" "I do." "Do you?" "I do. I always wanted to visit Paris." "Then let's go." At 90 and 81 years old, we're going to be international speakers. The trip to France was a milestone in their lives. They were received like academic celebrities. Their lectures filled auditoriums, and they met researchers and activists from all over the world who worked on aging-related issues. "Arthur," Martha said one afternoon in Paris, sitting at a café on the Champs-Élysées, "do you believe we're here?" "I do. And I believe we deserve to be here." How did two people who 20 years ago were considered disposable end up here? By proving they weren't disposable, by proving they had a lot to offer, and by inspiring other people to prove the same thing. "Martha, do you realize our story changed not only our lives but the lives of thousands of people?" "I do. And I realize that happened because we didn't accept the label they wanted to put on us. The label of useless old people. Exactly. We refused to wear that label and created our own labels. Active seniors, experienced mentors, examples of overcoming. And above all, people passionate about life." Back in Brazil, Martha and Arthur continued their work with renewed energy. The international trip had given them a global perspective on issues they faced locally. "You know, Arthur," Martha said at a support group meeting, "we discovered in Paris that the abandonment of the elderly is a worldwide problem, not just Brazilian. And we also discovered that our solution can be applied anywhere," Arthur added. "What solution?" asked one of the participants. "Refusing to accept that age is a limitation," said Martha. "Seeking purpose, staying active, valuing your own experience, not depending on external validation to feel useful. And mainly," Arthur added, "understanding that aging can be growth, not just deterioration." A young gerontology student visiting the group asked, "Mrs. Martha, Mr. Arthur, what would be the most important advice you'd give to someone approaching their golden years?" Martha and Arthur looked at each other, a question they had answered hundreds of times, but which remained important. "Prepare yourself for this stage of life," said Martha. "Don't wait to think about aging until it arrives. Take care of your health, keep friendships, develop hobbies, cultivate interests that don't depend on your profession. And mainly," Arthur added, "don't accept social prejudices about age. You can be active, productive, creative, and happy at 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, as long as you want it and take care of yourself for it. But what about when physical limitations really set in? Then you adapt," said Martha. "But adapting is not giving up. It's finding new ways to do what you've always done. And remember that physical limitation is not mental or emotional limitation," Arthur added. "You may have difficulty walking and still be useful, productive, capable of contributing." At 92, Martha started using a cane again, not due to injury, but for extra safety when walking. Arthur, at 83, had reduced his work at the auto repair shop, but still received special clients and continued mentoring young mechanics. "Martha, does the cane bother you?" Arthur asked one morning. Why would it bother me? Because it was a cane you were holding when you first climbed down that crater. It might bring back bad memories. Martha looked at the cane and laughed. Arthur, that cane brought me to you. This cane keeps me steady so I can stay with you. Both are instruments of life, not limitation. What a beautiful way to see it. I learned from you to see instruments of support as allies, not as symbols of weakness. And I learned from you that strength is not needing help. Strength is knowing how to ask for help when you need it. That year they decided to take one last big trip together. They wanted to see the northeast of Brazil, a region that had always sparked their curiosity. Arthur, do you think we can travel alone at our age? Martha, we can do anything we set our minds to. We just need to plan properly. Then let's plan. The trip through the Northeast lasted 3 weeks and was an unforgettable adventure. They visited paradisiacal beaches, historic cities, welcoming people. In every place, they were recognized by someone who had read their book or attended their lectures. Mrs. Martha, Mr. Arthur, shouted a woman on a beach in Maceió. You are my idols. Idols for what, my dear? Martha asked. For proving that life doesn't end at 60. I'm 75 and here alone enjoying the beach because you inspired me to travel alone. How wonderful, said Arthur. And are you enjoying it? I love it. My children thought it was crazy, but I said that if you can travel the world at 90, I can travel Brazil at 75. Encounters like this happened almost daily during the trip. Martha and Arthur realized how their story had spread and touched people across the country. Arthur, Martha said one night in Little Rock, I think our mission is accomplished. What do you mean? We wanted to prove that seniors still have value. We wanted to show that it's possible to start over after 70. We wanted to inspire others not to give up on themselves. And we did. We did. Now we can relax and enjoy each other without feeling like we need to prove anything to anyone. Does that mean we'll stop giving lectures? Not necessarily, but we'll do it for pleasure, not out of mission. The mission is already accomplished. Back in Eureka Springs after the trip, they found the foundation running perfectly under the management of competent professionals and dedicated volunteers. The support group had become a respected institution in the city, with a waiting list of people wanting to participate. You know, Martha, said Arthur, watching a group meeting, we created something that will continue to exist even when we're no longer here. It's our greatest achievement. We not only changed our lives, we changed other people's lives and created a movement of transformation. And it all started with a desperate descent into a crater, a descent that was actually an ascent back to life. At 93, Martha published a final book, Letters for a Granddaughter, a collection of reflections on aging, family, purpose, and happiness, written in the form of letters to Lucy, but directed at all generations. Grandma, why did you decide to write this book? Lucy asked during the launch. Because I want to record everything I've learned all these years. For you, for your children when you have them, for anyone who wants to understand that aging can be a beautiful adventure. What is the main message of the book? That age is just a number, but wisdom is a treasure. That each year lived adds value to a person, not subtracts. That it is possible to be young at heart at 90 and old at heart at 40. Arthur, sitting beside her at the launch, added, and that love has no age. That true companionship can begin at 70, 80, 90, that it's never too late to be happy. The book became another bestseller and was adopted in gerontology courses at several universities as a case study on successful aging. A year later, Arthur began to show signs of mild dementia. Martha, now 94, decided to care for him at home, adjusting both their routines to the new needs. Martha, said Gregory in a private conversation, are you sure you can take care of Arthur by yourself? Can I? I can. The question is whether you're going to support me in this, or try to talk me out of it. Mom, we're just worried about your health, too. Gregory, I raised 3 small children alone. I cared for dozens of people through our support group. I took care of Arthur when he had his heart attack. Now I'll care for him through his dementia. That's what people who love each other do for one another. But if it gets too hard, I'll ask for help, like I always have. All right, Mom, but please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I won't hesitate, but I won't give up on him prematurely either. Taking care of Arthur with dementia brought new challenges for Martha, but it also revealed even deeper aspects of the love they shared. Even when he couldn't remember some details, he still treated her with kindness and respect. "Arthur," she said one morning when he was confused about where he was, "you may not remember everything, but I remember for the both of us." "Martha, are you my wife?" "I am, for 15 years, and I'll keep being your wife until the last day. You're very beautiful and very kind to me. And you're very special to me, Arthur, even when you don't remember that." In his lucid moments, Arthur showed full awareness of his condition. "Martha, thank you for not giving up on me. Arthur, you didn't give up on me when I was emotionally broken in that crater. Why would I give up on you now? Because it's harder. Because I'm not the person I used to be. You're still the person I love. You just need more care. Love isn't just for the easy days. And if I get worse? What if I can't recognize you anymore? Then I'll remind you every day who you are to me, and I'll love you even if you don't remember to love me back." Arthur began to cry. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" "We both got lucky, Arthur. Lucky to find a true love when we thought it was too late." As Arthur's dementia progressed, Martha developed creative strategies to keep him comfortable and connected to reality. She created photo albums with explanatory captions, maintained comforting routines, and continued to involve him in activities he could still do. "Mrs. Martha," said the geriatrician during a checkup, "I rarely see caregivers as dedicated and competent as you. I'm not a caregiver, doctor, I'm a wife. But you're doing professional-level care work. I'm doing love's work, it's different. And is it hard? It's different, but no harder than any other challenge life has thrown our way. The community that Martha and Arthur had built over the years rallied to support them. Members of the support group took turns keeping Arthur company when Martha needed to go out. Justin and other young people they had mentored offered to help with household chores. "Mrs. Martha," Justin said one afternoon, "I want to repay a little of everything you and Mr. Arthur have done for me." "Justin, you don't owe us anything. We owe you your examples in life. You taught me that there are no disposable people. Now I want to help take care of the person who taught me that." "Thank you, my dear, but taking care of Arthur is my responsibility and my privilege. But you'll accept help so you can take care of him better, right?" Martha smiled. "I will, yes, as long as it's clear that decisions about his care remain mine." "Of course, Mrs. Martha. We're just support, not replacement." The support network that formed around Martha and Arthur became an example of how communities can care for their most vulnerable members without stripping them of dignity or autonomy. In one of the last interviews they gave together, when Arthur still had moments of clarity, a journalist asked about the legacy they wanted to leave. "We want to leave proof that age isn't an end. It's a transformation," Martha said. Arthur, with some difficulty but with conviction, added, "And that true love doesn't have an expiration date." What would you say to young couples just starting life together? "Build a solid foundation of respect and mutual admiration," Martha replied, "because that's what sustains a relationship when everything else changes." "And never stop dreaming together," Arthur added. "Make plans for when you're 60, 70, 80 years old. See aging as a journey to take together, not a problem to be avoided." 2 years later, Arthur passed away peacefully at home, surrounded by Martha, her children whom he had learned to consider his own, and the friends who had become chosen family. Martha, now 96 years old, held his hand until the very last moment. "Arthur," she whispered, "thank you for teaching me that it's never too late to love and be loved. Thank you for saving me in the depths and letting me save you too." Arthur's funeral brought together hundreds of people of all ages, a testament to the impact his life had made. Martha, despite the pain of loss, gave a speech at the ceremony. Arthur always said we saved each other in that crater 20 years ago. Today, I understand that we didn't just save each other. We saved the idea that it's possible to start over, that it's possible to be happy, that it's possible to contribute, regardless of age. He taught me that widowhood doesn't have to mean loneliness if we've built a network of solid relationships. He taught me that true love doesn't end with death. It transforms into gratitude and precious memories. And he taught me that even at the moment of goodbye, we can be at peace if we've lived with purpose and intensity. In the months following Arthur's death, Martha faced the challenge of redefining her life as a 96-year-old widow. But the solid foundation of relationships and activities she had built sustained her. "Grandma," Lucy said during a visit, "how are you dealing with the longing?" "With gratitude, my granddaughter. I miss him. But mostly I feel grateful for having had 20 wonderful years with Arthur. Many people don't even have 20 days of true love in their lives. Don't you feel lonely?" "Not lonely. Arthur taught me the difference between being alone and feeling lonely. I'm physically alone, but I'm surrounded by people who love me and whom I love. And plans for the future? To keep living each day with intensity, to keep taking care of people, to keep learning new things, to keep proving that age is not a limitation." Martha continued to participate actively in the foundation they had created, kept the weekly support group meetings, and began writing one last book, Arthur's Memories and the Lesson of Love He Taught Her. "Why did you decide to write about Arthur?" a friend asked. "Because his story deserves to be told. Because he was so much more than just a man I saved from a crater. He was proof that people can completely transform themselves when they find purpose and love. And also because I want other people to know that it's possible to find the love of your life at 72, if you're willing to open yourself up to that possibility." The book, Arthur, A Love Beyond Age, became an unexpected bestseller and was adapted into film, spreading even further the message that love and purpose have no expiration date. At 98, Martha was awarded an honorary doctorate from one of the country's leading universities, recognition for her contribution to changing paradigms about aging in Arkansas. "Mrs. Martha," said the university president during the ceremony, "you have become living proof that wisdom and experience are national treasures that should be valued." "Mr. President," she replied, her voice still steady, "I am not a national treasure. I am just a woman who refused to accept that her life was over when others decided it was. And what message would you leave for future generations? Take good care of your elderly, because one day you will be elderly too. See aging as an opportunity for growth, not just decline. And always remember that a person is worth who they are, not how old they are." That night, at home, Martha reflected on the extraordinary journey her life had taken since that desperate day in the crater. "Arthur," she said, looking at his photo on the nightstand, "who would have thought that two rejected and abandoned people would become symbols of hope for so many others? Today, at 98, I still wake up every day with a desire to live, to learn, to contribute. I still have projects. I still have dreams. I still have love to give. Thank you for teaching me that the end can be the beginning, that a crater can be a bridge, that it's never too late to be happy. And thank you for leaving me a life so full of meaning that even your absence cannot empty it." On the day of her 100th birthday, Martha organized a big party that brought together 5 generations: children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and even some great-great-grandchildren. The celebration took place where it all began, next to the old crater, which had been transformed into a memorial garden in honor of her and Arthur. "Everyone," she said during the party, her voice still clear at 100 years old, "I want to thank all of you who have been part of this extraordinary journey. 30 years ago, I was a rejected woman who believed her life was over. Today, I'm a centenarian surrounded by love and proud of every day I have lived. I learned that age is just the number of years we've had to accumulate experience and wisdom. I learned that it's never too late to start over, to love, to contribute, to be happy. And I learned that the secret to a full life isn't living many years, but living each year with intensity, purpose, and love. The party was broadcast live on social media and watched by thousands of people who followed Martha's journey. Messages of affection came from all over the world, from people who had been inspired by her story. "Grandma," said Lucy during the party, "what is your greatest wish now?" Martha looked around, seeing the smiling faces of the people she loved, feeling the positive energy she had created over the years. "My greatest wish, my granddaughter, is that our story continues to inspire people long after I'm no longer here, that other people discover that age is not a limitation, it's an opportunity, that other people find the courage to start over when everything seems lost. And above all, may other people learn that life is always an adventure in progress, never a movie that's already over." The end. Now tell me what you thought of this emotional story of overcoming and love beyond age. Martha and Arthur proved that it's never too late to start over, and that true love can bloom at any stage of life. Leave your comment about which part moved you the most, and whether you know any similar stories of people who found happiness in their later years. Subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one.